December 2006. Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant buzzes with the usual crowd of celebrities and power brokers. In a quiet corner booth, two people sit across from each other, neither knowing they're about to enter a 16-year relationship that will force one of them to sacrifice everything. She's the world's highest-paid supermodel. He's the NFL's golden boy. This is their first blind date, and the conversation flows easily. She laughs at his jokes. He's captivated by her intelligence. Neither of them realizes they're about to fall in love with their biggest competition. This is the story of what happens when you marry someone who wants the exact same thing you do: to be number one, to be the priority, to be the main character in your own story. What happens when two people who have never compromised for anyone try to build a life together? When both careers demand complete devotion, unwavering focus, and total sacrifice from everyone around them? The woman sitting in that Manhattan restaurant is Gisele Bündchen. She earns $47 million a year as the planet's most successful supermodel. The man across from her is Tom Brady, building what will become the greatest NFL career of all time. For 13 years of marriage, they will try to make it work. Two people accustomed to being the center of attention, attempting to share a spotlight that can only illuminate one person at a time. But love, no matter how strong, cannot solve every equation, and sometimes the price of supporting someone else's greatness is losing your own. This is the story of how it all fell apart, and why even the strongest people sometimes have to choose between love and their own identity. But to understand how a marriage between two of the most successful people on earth could crumble, you need to understand who they were before they met. You need to understand just how impossible this situation really was. By December 2006, Gisele isn't just a model. She's a global empire walking around in human form. Born in a small town in southern Brazil, she's discovered at 14 in a shopping mall. Within 5 years, she revolutionizes an entire industry. The fashion world in the late 90s is obsessed with heroin chic. Models are skeletal, pale, ethereal. Then Gisele arrives with curves, tan skin, and an energy that transforms everything. She single-handedly ends an era and creates a new one. The numbers are staggering. In the year 2000 alone, she appears on 37 Vogue covers. 37. Most models are lucky to get one Vogue cover in their entire career. She gets 3 per month. Her Victoria's Secret contract is worth $30 million. She's the highest-paid model for 8 consecutive years. By 2006, she's earning more money than most Fortune 500 CEOs. But it's not just about money. Gisele has achieved something most people never experience. She's the absolute best in the world at what she does. When she walks into a room, she knows she's the most important person there. She's accustomed to having her schedule dictate everyone else's plans. The modeling world revolves around her. Photographers wait for her availability. Magazine editors build entire issues around her participation. Fashion weeks in New York, Paris, Milan, and London coordinate their calendars based on when Gisele can attend. She's never had to compromise her career for anyone. She's never been the supporting character in someone else's story. Meanwhile, Tom Brady in 2006 has already established himself as NFL royalty. 3 Super Bowl victories with the New England Patriots, the quarterback who went from being drafted 199th overall to becoming the face of America's most popular sport. His career is built on an obsession that borders on the supernatural. While other players go home after practice, Tom stays for hours reviewing film. While others enjoy their off-seasons, Tom is training, studying, preparing for the next campaign. Football doesn't just occupy his time, it consumes his entire existence. His diet, his sleep schedule, his social life, his relationships. Everything revolves around being the best quarterback in the world. He's never been in a serious relationship that lasted more than a few years. The women who date him quickly learn that they will always be secondary to football. His career demands 6 months of complete focus during the season, followed by 6 months of training and preparation for the next season. There is no off switch, there is no balance, there is only football and everything else. Both Gisele and Tom have reached the pinnacle of careers that demand total selfishness. The modeling industry requires constant travel, perfect physical condition, and complete availability. The NFL requires unwavering dedication that leaves no room for anything else. When 2 alpha careers collide, the mathematics are simple. Someone has to bend, Someone has to become the supporting character. Someone has to sacrifice their dreams so the other person can achieve theirs. In most relationships, there's a clear hierarchy. One person is the breadwinner, the star, the priority. The other person understands their role and accepts it. But what happens when both people are used to being the priority? What happens when neither person has ever played a supporting role? The math doesn't work. It's an equation with no solution. But they don't know this yet. They're falling in love, and love makes people believe they can solve any problem. Just 2 months into their relationship, the first major test arrives. Tom's ex-girlfriend, Bridget Moynihan, announces she's pregnant with his child. Most people would run. The drama, the complications, the media attention. Any rational person would decide this situation is too messy, too complex, too risky. Gisele stays. It's the first sign of how much she'll sacrifice for this relationship. She's a global supermodel at the peak of her career, and she chooses to deal with pregnancy drama from her boyfriend's ex. She attends doctor appointments. She helps prepare for the baby's arrival. She becomes a stepmother to a child that isn't hers. The woman who has never compromised for anyone begins compromising immediately. But she believes it's temporary. She believes once they get through this initial chaos, they can figure out how to balance both careers. They can make it work. They're about to spend the next 16 years trying to solve an equation that has no answer. The sacrifice has begun, and it's about to accelerate in ways neither of them can imagine. Phase 1, the honeymoon period. Making it work. February 2009, a small church in California hosts one of the most secretive celebrity weddings in recent memory. 40 guests, no media, no fanfare. Gisele and Tom marry in a ceremony that lasts 20 minutes. The privacy isn't romantic, it's strategic. Both understand that their relationship will only survive if they keep it completely separate from their public brands. They're not just combining their lives, they're attempting to merge two global enterprises without destroying either one. Think about the logistics for a moment. Gisele has commitments spanning 6 continents. Fashion weeks in New York, Paris, Milan and London. Photo shoots that are booked 18 months in advance. Contracts worth tens of millions of dollars that cannot be broken. Tom has a schedule dictated by the National Football League. Training camp starts in July. The season runs through February if they reach the Super Bowl. Every day is accounted for from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. Now imagine trying to coordinate these two schedules. It's like watching air traffic controllers manage two constantly moving aircraft that can never occupy the same airspace. Every decision requires a summit meeting between their management teams. A simple dinner date needs approval from 4 different assistants. A vacation becomes a complex negotiation between agents who represent conflicting interests. But somehow, in those early years, they make it work. Gisele starts scheduling her biggest campaigns around Tom's off-season. She flies to Paris for Fashion Week, then immediately returns to Boston for Tom's promotional appearances. She's essentially living 2 lives in parallel time zones. Tom, for his part, makes unprecedented compromises. He attends fashion shows in Milan during his precious off-season. He poses for couples photo shoots when he'd normally be studying game film. He's sharing attention he's never shared before. What the public sees is a power couple living a fairy tale. Behind the scenes, it's exhausting choreography between 2 people who have never had to consider anyone else's schedule. The coordination requires military precision. Gisele's team creates detailed spreadsheets tracking Tom's training schedule, team meetings and game dates. Tom's assistants learn the fashion calendar by heart, understanding which weeks are absolutely untouchable for Gisele. Their homes become command centres, multiple phones constantly ringing, assistants running between rooms with schedule changes, private jets on standby because plans shift hourly. But it's working. They're both still excelling at their careers while building something together. In December 2009, their son Benjamin is born. Suddenly, the equation transforms completely. It's not just 2 competing careers anymore. There's a tiny human who needs consistency, presence and unconditional availability. For the first time in her adult life, Gisele experiences something that matters more than a photo shoot. She holds Benjamin and realizes that some things are actually more important than appearing on the cover of Vogue. She starts making choices she's never made before, turning down certain campaigns, being more selective about travel. requesting shooting schedules that allow her to be home more often. The compromise has officially begun. Tom, meanwhile, is entering what will become the most dominant stretch of his career. The 2010s will see him win 4 more Super Bowl championships. His obsession with football isn't diminishing. If anything, becoming a father intensifies his drive to provide and achieve. He starts talking about legacy differently. It's not just about winning for himself anymore. He wants to build something his children can be proud of. He wants to show them what greatness looks like. Neither of them realizes they're moving in opposite directions. Gisele is pulling back from her career to focus on family. Tom is doubling down on his career to build a legacy for his family. The mathematical impossibility is becoming clearer every month, but the first real test of their relationship has already happened, and it reveals everything about what's coming next. Phase 2. The first cracks. Someone has to bend. Let's go back to February 2008. Super Bowl 42. This happens before they're married, but it sets the pattern for everything that follows. The New England Patriots are 18-0, one victory away from completing the only perfect season in modern NFL history. Tom has thrown 50 touchdown passes during the regular season. The Patriots haven't just been good, they've been historically dominant. This isn't just about winning a championship. It's about achieving something that will never be accomplished again. The New York Giants are massive underdogs. Most experts predict the Patriots will win by 2 touchdowns or more. Instead, the Giants play the game of their lives. With less than 2 minutes remaining, New England leads 14-10. Tom needs one more defensive stop, and he'll have his 4th Super Bowl victory plus the perfect season that has eluded every other quarterback in history. Instead, Giants quarterback Eli Manning escapes what appears to be a certain sack, and completes one of the most improbable passes in Super Bowl history. New York scores the winning touchdown with 35 seconds left on the clock. Tom walks off the field completely devastated. The perfect season is gone. The 4th Super Bowl ring vanishes. Instead of making history, he's made one of the most painful losses in sports history. As he heads toward the locker room, cameras catch Gisele in the tunnel. She's surrounded by reporters asking about the devastating loss. This is her moment to smile politely and say nothing controversial, to be the supportive girlfriend who deflects attention from her partner's failure. Instead, she defends him publicly. She tells the reporters that Tom cannot throw the ball and catch the ball at the same time. She criticizes his teammates for dropping passes. She's taking the heat off her boyfriend and directing it toward other people. The comments dominate sports media for weeks. Gisele becomes the villain who blamed everyone except Tom for the most painful loss of his career. She doesn't care about the criticism. She's protecting the person she loves, even when it makes her look terrible in public. This moment, even before they're married, reveals everything about their future dynamic. The woman who built her entire career on being universally admired is now willing to be disliked, if it helps Tom's reputation. She's sacrificing her own public image for his emotional well-being. The pattern is established. When Tom needs protection, Gisele will provide it regardless of the cost to herself. This is the first crack in her individual identity. The first moment where being Tom Brady's girlfriend becomes more important than being Gisele Bündchen, the supermodel. Fast forward to 2010. They're now married with baby Benjamin. Their daughter Vivian arrives in 2012. Now they have 2 young children who need stability, predictability, and presence. The mathematical impossibility of their situation becomes more obvious every year. Gisele is still earning enormous sums from modelling, but she's turning down more opportunities than she's accepting. The fashion industry moves quickly. Models who aren't constantly visible get forgotten. Younger women are always waiting to take their place. But children don't care about fashion weeks or magazine covers. They need parents who show up to school plays and birthday parties. They need bedtime stories and help with homework. Meanwhile, Tom's career is reaching new heights. He wins additional Super Bowl championships in 2014 and 2016. Each victory makes him hungrier for the next one. The 2014 victory is particularly sweet because it comes after years of playoff disappointments. Tom and the Patriots defeat the Seattle Seahawks in a thrilling finish that requires a goal line interception to secure the win. The 2016 championship is even more dramatic. Another overtime victory, this time against the Atlanta Falcons. after overcoming a 28-3 deficit, the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Each triumph validates Tom's obsession. Each victory proves that his single-minded focus on football is justified. Why would he consider retiring when he's still reaching new peaks? The more successful he becomes, the less willing he is to step away. The more successful he becomes, the more Gisele has to sacrifice to support that success. By 2012, friends notice that Gisele rarely talks about her own career anymore. Conversations focus on Tom's season, the children's schedules, and family logistics. The woman who once commanded every room she entered is gradually becoming a supporting character. She's attending fewer fashion events, declining magazine covers that conflict with school schedules, choosing family obligations over career opportunities. But she believes it's temporary. She believes Tom will eventually retire and they can recalibrate their relationship. She believes her sacrifices are building towards something that will benefit their entire family. She's completely wrong, but she won't realize it for several more years. The transformation is subtle but relentless. Each small compromise leads to the next one. Each sacrifice makes the next sacrifice seem reasonable. Gisele starts missing major fashion events because they conflict with Tom's playoff runs. She turns down lucrative campaigns because they require travel during the football season. She restructures her entire professional identity around someone else's schedule. The modelling industry notices. Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue, starts booking other models for covers that would have automatically gone to Gisele. Photographers begin working with younger talent who are more available. Gisele's career isn't ending abruptly. It's being slowly suffocated by 1,000 small compromises. But she tells herself it's worth it. Tom is building something historically significant. Their children are getting stability and presence from at least one parent. She's making a difference in ways that matter more than magazine covers. She believes her sacrifice has meaning and purpose. She's about to discover how wrong she is. Phase 3. The retirement fake-out. The sacrifice becomes public. April 2015. Gisele Bündchen announces her retirement from runway modelling at age 34. The announcement shocks the fashion industry. Models don't retire at 34. They don't walk away while they're still booking the biggest campaigns and earning the highest fees. Naomi Campbell modelled into her 40s. Cindy Crawford continued major campaigns well into her 30s. Kate Moss is still working decades after her debut. But Gisele isn't just any model. She's someone who has never made decisions based on what other people expect. The public statement mentions wanting to focus on motherhood and business ventures. The private reality is much more complex. Tom's career demands are intensifying every year. Someone needs to manage the household, coordinate the children's schedules, and provide the stability that allows him to maintain his singular focus on football. That someone is going to be her. She's walking away from the runway at the peak of her earning power, $47 million a year, the highest paid model for 8 consecutive years, global recognition that most people never achieve. She's trading all of that so Tom can continue playing a game. But this isn't a small temporary sacrifice. This is the complete restructuring of her identity around someone else's dreams. The fashion industry reacts with genuine shock. Anna Wintour calls it the end of an era. Photographers who built their careers shooting Gisele don't understand why she's stepping away. Karl Lagerfeld, the legendary designer, publicly questions her decision. He calls it a waste of natural talent and suggests she's making a mistake that will be impossible to undo. The criticism stings, but Gisele has made her choice. She's calculated that Tom is building something historically significant. She believes supporting his greatness is worth sacrificing her own career momentum. She believes he'll play for a few more years, retire with multiple championships, and then they can focus on building businesses and raising their family together. She believes her sacrifice has an expiration date. She's wrong on every count. The retirement doesn't make Tom more grateful. It makes him more demanding. With Gisele handling everything at home, he can focus entirely on football. His performance improves. His obsession intensifies. Instead of appreciating her sacrifice, he comes to expect it. Tom's daily routine becomes even more regimented. He wakes up at 5:30 a.m. for training. He doesn't return home until after 8 p.m. Weekends are filled with additional workouts and film study. Gisele manages everything else: school pickups and drop-offs, parent-teacher conferences, doctor appointments, social schedules, household staff, financial planning, business decisions. She becomes the CEO of their family enterprise, while Tom focuses solely on being the quarterback of the New England Patriots. The arrangement works brilliantly for Tom's career. The 2016 season produces his greatest triumph yet. The comeback victory against Atlanta in Super Bowl 51 establishes him as the greatest quarterback in NFL history. But it's devastating for Gisele's sense of self. By 2017, the private tension is becoming public knowledge. Tom openly admits in interviews that Gisele wants him to retire. The admission is remarkable for its honesty. Tom Brady, who controls every aspect of his public image, is acknowledging that his marriage has problems. He tells reporters that she's been the one sacrificing for the family. It's a rare glimpse behind the curtain of their carefully managed public relationship. The woman who was once known primarily for revolutionizing the modeling industry is now known primarily for wanting her husband to quit football. It's a complete reversal of her public identity. She's transformed from being the main character in her own story to being a supporting character in someone else's narrative. Media coverage shifts dramatically. Articles about Gisele now focus on her role as Tom's wife rather than her business ventures or environmental activism. She's introduced as Tom Brady's wife Gisele instead of supermodel Gisele Bündchen. The woman who once graced 37 Vogue covers in a single year is now famous for attending Tom's games and wanting him to spend more time at home. Friends later reveal the depth of Gisele's frustration. She feels trapped by her own generosity. She stepped back from modelling during what should have been her prime earning years. While Tom continues winning championships and building his legacy, she's managing carpools and school schedules. She doesn't regret supporting her family, but she resents the assumption that her dreams automatically matter less than his dreams. The hidden cost of their marriage is becoming impossible to ignore. Imagine being the best in the world at something, then giving it up to support someone else's career. Imagine earning $47 million a year, then stepping away so your spouse can continue playing a sport. Now imagine that your sacrifice isn't temporary, it's permanent. And instead of gratitude, you get expectations for more sacrifice. That's Gisele's reality by 2017, and it's about to get much worse. The breaking point starts with Tom's greatest triumph. February 5th, 2017, brings the moment that changes everything. Super Bowl 51. Phase 4, the breaking point approaches. The ultimatum years. The Atlanta Falcons lead the New England Patriots 28-3 early in the third quarter. It's the largest deficit Tom has ever faced in a Super Bowl. Most quarterbacks would fold under this pressure. Most teams would start planning for next season. Instead, Tom Brady engineers the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. 25 unanswered points. The first Super Bowl to require overtime. A victory that cements his legacy as the greatest quarterback who ever lived. It's the performance that defines his entire career. The moment that separates him from every other player in NFL history. In the luxury box, cameras show Gisele watching the final moments. She should be ecstatic. Her husband just accomplished something no one else has ever done. Instead, she looks stressed, worried, almost resigned to what's coming next. She knows what this victory means better than anyone watching. Tom isn't going to retire after achieving something this historically significant. He's going to want to do it again and again. The comeback that thrills millions of football fans represents something entirely different to Gisele. It's confirmation that her sacrifice was just the beginning, not the end. Tom is 40 years old. He's just proven he can still perform at the highest level. Why would he walk away now? The answer becomes clear in the months following the victory. Tom starts talking about playing until he's 45, maybe longer if his body holds up. He's not just chasing championships anymore, he's chasing something deeper and more dangerous. He's trying to prove that age doesn't matter, that willpower can overcome physical limitations, that greatness has no expiration date. Gisele watches her husband become more obsessed, not less. The Super Bowl victory doesn't satisfy him. It makes him hungrier for the next challenge. 2018 and 2019 become years of increasing tension. Tom continues playing at an elite level. Gisele continues managing everything else. But something fundamental has changed in their dynamic. The sacrifice is no longer feeling temporary, it's starting to feel permanent and unappreciated. Friends notice that Gisele seems different at social gatherings, less vibrant, more withdrawn. She's still beautiful, still charming, but there's a sadness that wasn't there before. She's watching her peers continue their careers while she's defined primarily as someone's wife. Models she came up with are still booking major campaigns. Photographers she worked with for decades are shooting other faces. She's attending school plays and soccer games which are important and meaningful, but she's also watching her professional identity disappear. Both responsibilities matter, but only one was her choice. The conversations with Tom become more frequent and more intense. Gisele explains that she's given up everything she worked for to support his dreams. She's restructured her entire life around his schedule. She's ready for their partnership to become more balanced. Tom promises things will change. He says he's thinking seriously about retirement. 2 more years at most, maybe 3 if the team is really competitive. But his actions tell a different story. He signs contract extensions. He hires new trainers and nutritionists. He starts talking about revolutionizing quarterback longevity. Everything he does suggests someone planning to play indefinitely, not someone preparing to retire. 2019 becomes the year of the ultimatum. Gisele doesn't deliver it in anger or as a threat. She presents it as a simple statement of fact. She will not continue making the same level of sacrifices much longer. Tom needs to start prioritizing family over football. The conversation happens privately in their Boston home, but friends later reveal its contents to reporters. Gisele explains that she's approaching 40 and wants to rebuild her career while she still has time. She's given up the prime years of her earning potential and professional influence. She wants to launch new businesses. She wants to focus on environmental activism. She wants to model selectively on projects that excite her. Most importantly, she wants a husband who is present for their family, not just physically but mentally and emotionally. Tom promises he understands. He says he's already achieved everything a quarterback can achieve. How much more does he need to prove? Then March 2020 changes everything in ways neither of them expects. Tom Brady signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The decision shocks the sports world. Tom has spent 20 years with the New England Patriots. He's synonymous with the franchise. His departure feels like a divorce from his football family. But for Gisele, it represents something much more devastating. Not only is Tom extending his career indefinitely, he's uprooting their entire family, moving from Boston, where they've built a life and established roots, to Florida, where they know nobody. The kids have to change schools. Gisele has to abandon the business networks and friendships she's cultivated in Massachusetts. Their extended family relationships become long distance. Also, Tom can continue playing football. The move to Tampa Bay was supposedly a compromise. Warmer weather for the family. A change of scenery that might be energizing. Maybe 2 seasons and then retirement. But Gisele quickly realizes that Tom isn't just chasing one more championship. He's chasing something she can never compete with and will never understand. He's pursuing football immortality. At age 43, he's still completely obsessed with proving he's the greatest quarterback who ever lived. Not just great among his peers, not just successful by any reasonable measure, the absolute greatest in the history of the sport. There will always be one more season to validate that claim, one more record to break, one more young quarterback to outperform, one more team to prove wrong. The retirement conversation isn't about when he'll stop playing, it's about him finding new reasons to continue playing. Gisele finally understands that the retirement she's been waiting for will never come voluntarily. Tom Brady will play football until his body fails or the NFL forces him to stop. She's been waiting 13 years for him to choose family over football. She realizes that day will never arrive because Tom doesn't see it as a choice. In his mind, playing football at the highest level is providing for his family. The woman who sacrificed her own career to support his dreams suddenly understands that those dreams have no endpoint. They will continue consuming everything until there's nothing left to sacrifice. And she's finally ready to stop sacrificing. But the ultimate betrayal is still coming. The climax. The 40-day betrayal. February 1st, 2022. Tom Brady sits in his home office in Tampa Bay, staring at a carefully crafted statement on his computer screen. After 22 NFL seasons, he's ready to announce his retirement. Not a maybe, not a probably. A definitive end to the greatest quarterback career in history. The statement takes weeks to perfect. Tom works with his public relations team to craft every word deliberately. Every sentence is designed to convey finality and peace. He talks about wanting to focus on family. He mentions Gisele and their children specifically. He discusses the toll that football has taken on his body and his relationships. He sounds like someone who has finally found peace with stepping away from the game that has consumed his entire adult life. At 11:37 a.m. Eastern Time, Tom Brady posts the retirement announcement across all his social media platforms. The reaction is immediate and massive. ESPN breaks into regular programming with special reports. Sports networks dedicate entire shows to analysing his legacy. Former teammates and coaches offer tributes. Fans share memories of his greatest moments. But the most important reaction happens in private. Gisele is reportedly overjoyed. Not just happy or relieved. Overjoyed. For the first time in 13 years of marriage, she believes the sacrifice phase of their relationship is finally over. She starts making plans for their post-football life immediately. Travel without schedules dictated by the NFL calendar. Family vacations that don't have to be squeezed between training camp and the regular season. Date nights that don't get cancelled because of game preparation. Friends describe her as happier than she's been in years. She's texting relatives about vacation plans they can finally make. She's researching business opportunities they can pursue together. She's imagining what it feels like to have a husband who isn't mentally preparing for the next game during every conversation. She starts planning their future with an enthusiasm that friends haven't seen since the early years of their relationship. She believes they can finally build the balanced partnership she's been waiting for since that blind date in Manhattan. For 40 days she lives in this reality. 40 days of believing that Tom Brady, the football player, is retired forever. 40 days of planning their future together as equal partners. 40 days of feeling like she might become the main character in her own story again. She researches launching a wellness company. She explores returning to selective modeling for brands aligned with her environmental values. She starts planning charitable initiatives that have been on hold for years. For 40 days, Gisele Bündchen begins to remember who she was before she became Tom Brady's wife. Then March 13th arrives and destroys everything. Tom Brady announces he's returning to the NFL. The statement is brief, almost casual in its tone. He talks about unfinished business with his Tampa Bay teammates. He mentions loving the competition and the camaraderie of professional football. He discusses feeling energized after his short break and realizing he's not ready to walk away from something he loves. He doesn't mention his family. He doesn't acknowledge the retirement announcement that was supposed to mark the beginning of their next chapter together. He doesn't explain why he's changing his mind after 40 days of being certain about his decision. He just announces he's coming back, immediately, for the upcoming season. In that moment, Tom Brady makes a choice that will define the rest of his life. He chooses his career over his marriage, his legacy over his family, football over Gisele, and it's not a heat-of-the-moment decision driven by emotion or missing the game. This is a calculated choice made by someone who understands the consequences. He knows this decision will end his marriage. He knows Gisele has already sacrificed everything she's willing to sacrifice. He knows she's been waiting 13 years for him to choose family over football. He chooses football anyway. For Gisele, this isn't just about Tom changing his mind about retirement. This is about 13 years of compromises that apparently meant nothing to him. 13 years of stepping back from her own career so he could pursue his dreams. 13 years of being told that retirement was coming soon, that her sacrifice was temporary, that they would eventually build something together. She gave up the peak years of her modelling career, the years when she was earning $47 million annually and appearing on magazine covers worldwide. The years when she was revolutionizing an entire industry and building a global brand. She sacrificed her identity as the world's most successful model to become known primarily as Tom Brady's wife, the patient spouse who wanted her husband to spend more time with family. And for what? So he could play football until he's 45, so he could chase records that only he cares about, so he could prove he's the greatest quarterback ever for the 100th time to people who already acknowledge his greatness. Think about this from her perspective for a moment. Imagine you're the absolute best in the world at something. Imagine you're earning more money than almost anyone on the planet from your talent and hard work. Imagine you're universally recognized as a revolutionary figure in your industry. Now imagine giving all of that up to support someone else's career. Imagine restructuring your entire identity around being supportive rather than being successful. Now imagine your partner promising you repeatedly that this sacrifice is temporary, that they'll retire soon and you can build something together, that your dreams matter too, and you'll get your turn to be the priority. Now imagine them breaking that promise, publicly, without warning, after you've already given up everything that made you who you are. That's what Tom Brady does to Gisele Bündchen on March 13th, 2022. The 40-day retirement betrayal isn't just changing his mind about playing football, it's the ultimate revelation of his priorities. When forced to choose between football and everything else, Tom chooses football, every single time, without exception. The woman who sacrificed the prime of her career for their marriage suddenly understands that those sacrifices bought her nothing. Tom Brady will play football until the NFL forces him to stop. There is no voluntary retirement. There is no choosing family over football. There is only football and everything else that comes second. For Gisele, this realization is devastating and liberating at the same time. Devastating because 13 years of compromises and sacrifices were based on a fundamental lie. Tom was never going to choose family over football voluntarily. The balanced partnership she was waiting for was never going to materialize. But liberating because she finally sees the situation with perfect clarity. She's been waiting for something that will never happen. She's been compromising with someone who sees compromise as weakness. She's been playing by rules that only apply to her. The marriage is effectively over the moment Tom announces he's coming back. Everything that happens after March 13th is just paperwork and public relations. The actual relationship ends when Tom chooses football over the promise he made to his wife 40 days earlier. But the cruel irony is still to come. Throughout the 2022 NFL season, Tom Brady plays some of the worst football of his career. He looks distracted on the field, unfocused during interviews, older than his 45 years in ways that have nothing to do with physical ability. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers struggle all season, finishing with an 8-9 record and missing the playoffs entirely. This is what he sacrificed his marriage to achieve, one disappointing season of mediocre football. The very thing he chose over his family isn't even successful. He threw away 13 years of marriage for 8 wins and 9 losses. Meanwhile, Gisele is quietly preparing for the inevitable. She hires the best divorce attorneys in the country. She starts figuring out custody arrangements that will protect their children from the chaos. She begins the complex process of separating their business interests and financial assets. Most importantly, she starts reclaiming her identity. For the first time in over a decade, she's making decisions based entirely on her own priorities. She's not considering Tom's schedule or the NFL calendar or anyone else's needs, except her children's. She's remembering what it feels like to be the main character in her own story. The woman who gave up being Gisele Bündchen, the supermodel, to become Tom Brady's wife, is finally ready to become herself again. And Tom Brady, sitting in the quarterback meeting room in Tampa Bay, preparing for another season of football, has no idea that he's already lost the most important game of his life. The game where the stakes weren't championships or records or legacy. The game where the stakes were love, family, and partnership. The game where winning meant choosing someone else over himself. For the first time in his career, Tom Brady didn't just lose. He lost everything. The resolution, reclaiming her story. October 28, 2022. 2 matching Instagram statements appear at exactly the same time. Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen announced their divorce with the same precision they once used to coordinate their schedules. Professional language, respectful tone, no drama or public finger-pointing. Even their divorce is managed like a business merger between 2 Fortune 500 companies. The statements are carefully crafted to reveal nothing about the real reasons for their separation. They mention growing apart and wanting different things. They emphasize their commitment to co-parenting their children. What they don't mention is the 13 years of compromises that led to this moment. They don't discuss the impossible mathematics of two alpha personalities trying to share one spotlight. They don't reveal the cost of supporting someone else's greatness. The public sees a civilized end to a high-profile marriage. The reality is much more complex. This isn't a typical celebrity divorce about money or infidelity or incompatible lifestyles. This is about something much more fundamental. Two people who discovered that love alone cannot solve every equation. The divorce proceedings move quickly and quietly. Both parties hire teams of attorneys who specialize in high-net-worth separations. The negotiations happen behind closed doors with strict confidentiality agreements. The financial settlement is surprisingly straightforward. Unlike most celebrity divorces, this isn't about dividing assets or fighting over alimony. Gisele was actually worth more than Tom during their marriage. Her modelling career, business ventures and investments had generated more wealth than his football contracts. By 2022, she had a net worth of approximately $400 million compared to his $250 million. She wasn't divorcing him for money. She was divorcing him to reclaim herself. The custody arrangement focuses on protecting their children from the fallout of their parents' incompatible ambitions. Benjamin and Vivian will split time between both parents, but the priority is stability and normalcy. The children are kept out of the media coverage entirely. No photos, no statements, no public appearances related to the divorce. Both parents agree that their kids should have as normal a childhood as possible despite their circumstances. 2 weeks after the divorce is finalised, Tom Brady retires from football again. This time it appears to be permanent. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers season ends with their playoff elimination in January 2023, and Tom walks away for good. The irony is staggering and heartbreaking. He gave up his marriage for one mediocre season of football, then immediately retired anyway. Everything Gisele had been asking for during their final years together happens as soon as their marriage ends. Tom finally chooses to step away from football, but by then it's too late to save their relationship. The damage was done the moment he chose to come out of retirement after 40 days. The trust was broken when he prioritized football over the promises he made to his family. Some betrayals cannot be undone, even when the circumstances that caused them disappear. The timing reveals the tragic nature of their situation. If Tom had stayed retired in February 2022, they might have worked through their problems. If he had honoured his initial decision, Gisele might have been willing to rebuild their partnership. Instead, the 40-day betrayal convinced her that Tom would never voluntarily choose family over football. The final retirement came too late to matter. Meanwhile, Gisele begins the process of rebuilding her identity from the ground up. For over a decade, she was defined primarily as Tom Brady's wife, the former supermodel who gave up her career to support her husband's dreams, the woman who wanted her husband to retire from football. Now she's free to become Gisele Bündchen again. The transformation doesn't happen overnight. After 13 years of being a supporting character, rediscovering your individual identity takes time and intention. She starts with small steps, making decisions without consulting anyone else's schedule, accepting business opportunities based on her own interests rather than family logistics, reconnecting with parts of herself that got lost during her marriage. She launches new business ventures that have nothing to do with Tom's schedule or the NFL calendar. A wellness company focused on sustainable living, investment partnerships with environmental technology startups, selective modeling work for brands that align with her values. Most importantly, she starts dating someone whose career doesn't compete with hers for attention. Her relationship with Joaquim Valente, her jiu-jitsu instructor, represents everything her marriage to Tom wasn't. Joaquim is successful in his own right, but his success doesn't require constant travel, media attention or public adoration. They can both be accomplished without one person sacrificing their identity for the other person's dreams. Neither of them needs to be the most famous person in the relationship. Neither career demands that the other person become a supporting character. It's a partnership between equals rather than a hierarchy, where one person's dreams matter more than the others. The relationship develops slowly and privately. Gisele has learnt the cost of building your life around someone else's ambitions. She's determined not to repeat that mistake. By 2024, both Tom and Gisele have moved forward with their lives in dramatically different ways. Tom is pursuing his broadcasting career with Fox Sports. His contract is worth $375 million over 10 years, making him the highest-paid sports broadcaster in history. He's still wealthy, still famous, still considered one of the greatest athletes who ever lived. His football legacy is secure and will never be questioned, but his divorce settlement reportedly cost him significant portions of his wealth. The financial impact is substantial, though not devastating given his career earnings. More importantly, it cost him the family life he claimed to want during those final retirement announcements. He now sees his children on a part-time basis. The daily presence and involvement he said he valued had to be scheduled around custody agreements. He's dating again, but the relationships are complicated by his public profile and the lessons learned from his marriage to Gisele. Any woman who dates Tom Brady now knows that his career will always come first when choices have to be made. Gisele, meanwhile, has successfully re-established herself as a businesswoman, activist, and selective model. She's no longer known primarily for her relationship with Tom Brady. She's known for her own achievements again. The transformation is remarkable to observe. In interviews and public appearances, she seems lighter, more energetic, more authentically herself than she had in years. She's returned to selective modelling work, but only for projects that genuinely excite her. Major fashion campaigns with environmental messages, covers for magazines that align with her activism, creative collaborations that feel meaningful rather than just lucrative. Her business ventures are thriving. The wellness company has expanded internationally. Her investment portfolio focuses on sustainable technology and women-owned businesses. She's using her wealth and platform to support causes she cares about. Most visibly, she's reclaimed her narrative in the media. Articles about Gisele now focus on her business acumen and environmental work rather than her role as Tom's ex-wife. She's being interviewed about sustainability initiatives and female entrepreneurship. She's speaking at conferences about conscious living and responsible investing. She's the main character in her own story again. They co-parent their children successfully. They attend school events together when necessary. They maintain a cordial relationship focused on their family's well-being. From the outside, it looks like the best possible outcome for a difficult situation. Two people who couldn't make their marriage work but managed to separate with dignity and mutual respect. But the cost was enormous. Not just the end of a marriage, but the recognition that some problems don't have solutions. That love, no matter how genuine, cannot resolve fundamental incompatibilities between two people who need the same thing from their relationship. The story of Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen proves several uncomfortable truths about success, ambition, and relationships. First, that the most successful people often make the worst partners for other successful people. This isn't because they're bad people or because they don't love each other deeply. It's because success at the highest level requires a degree of selfishness that doesn't leave room for the compromises that healthy relationships demand. Both Tom and Gisele reached the pinnacle of careers that demanded complete devotion. Modelling at her level required constant availability, perfect physical condition, and total focus on maintaining her brand and relevance. Football at his level required 6 months of complete obsession during the season, followed by 6 months of preparation for the next season. Training, film study, physical conditioning, mental preparation. Neither career had an off switch. Neither career allowed for being the supporting character in someone else's story without paying a massive professional price. When two alpha careers collide, the mathematics are brutal. Someone has to bend. Someone has to sacrifice. Someone has to accept being less important than they've ever been in their adult life. Gisele tried to be that person for 13 years. She bent until she almost broke. She sacrificed until she lost herself. She accepted being secondary until she couldn't recognize who she had become. The lesson isn't that she was wrong to try. The lesson is that some sacrifices cost more than they're worth, even when they're made for love. Second, supporting someone else's greatness can cost you your own identity. Gisele learned that being a supporting character in someone else's story, no matter how epic that story becomes, might not be worth losing your own narrative. She spent 13 years being known primarily as Tom Brady's wife, instead of Gisele Bündchen, the revolutionary supermodel. She went from being the main character in her own life to being a footnote in someone else's biography. The woman who once appeared on 37 Vogue covers in a single year became famous for wanting her husband to quit football. The entrepreneur who built a $400 million fortune became known for making sacrifices. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It was the result of thousands of small compromises that gradually eroded her individual identity. Every photo shoot she declined because it conflicted with Tom's schedule. Every business opportunity she passed up because it required travel during football season. Every decision made based on what was best for his career rather than her own interests. Individually, these compromises seemed reasonable and loving. Collectively, they cost her herself. The most successful people often have the hardest time accepting supporting roles because their entire identity is built on being the best at what they do. When that gets taken away, even voluntarily, it creates an identity crisis that can destroy relationships. Third, that you cannot love someone into changing their fundamental nature. Gisele spent years believing that Tom would eventually choose family over football. She thought his obsession with the game would diminish as he got older, as he achieved more success, as their family grew and needed more from him. She was wrong on every count. Tom Brady at 45 was just as obsessed with football as Tom Brady at 25. Success didn't satisfy him. It made him hungrier for more success. Achievement didn't make him grateful. It made him more demanding of everyone around him. Age didn't bring perspective. It brought urgency to accomplish even more before time ran out. Gisele learned that you cannot wait for someone to become the person you need them to be. You can only decide whether you can love and live with them as they actually are, not as they might become. She finally decided she couldn't. Fourth, that some equations have no solutions. The mathematical impossibility that defined their relationship from that first blind date in Manhattan never resolved. Two people who needed to be the priority in their own lives, trying to share a relationship where only one person could hold that position. Love couldn't solve this problem. Therapy couldn't solve this problem. Compromise couldn't solve this problem, because the compromise only went in one direction. Some incompatibilities are fundamental and permanent. Some relationships fail not because people don't love each other, but because they love incompatible things. Tom loved football more than anything else. Gisele loved the idea of being in a partnership more than anything else. Those two loves could not coexist indefinitely. The most important lesson from their story might be the most difficult to accept, that recognizing when you're living someone else's story instead of your own is one of the hardest but most necessary skills in life. Gisele spent 13 years as a supporting character in Tom's narrative. She was the patient wife, the understanding mother, the woman who sacrificed her prime earning years so her husband could chase records that mattered more to him than their relationship. When the marriage ended, she didn't just lose a husband, she regained herself. She remembered what it felt like to be the main character in her own story, to make decisions based on her own priorities instead of someone else's schedule, to be known for her own achievements rather than her husband's accomplishments, to wake up every morning focused on her own goals rather than supporting someone else's dreams. The divorce wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the beginning of Gisele reclaiming her own narrative. And perhaps that's the real lesson for anyone watching this story unfold, that no matter how much you love someone, you cannot lose yourself in their story, that supporting someone else's dreams cannot require abandoning your own identity, that even the strongest people, even the most successful people, even people who seem to have everything, sometimes have to choose between love and themselves. For 13 years, Gisele chose Tom. She chose his career over hers. She chose his dreams over her own. She chose being his supporting character over being her own main character. After the 40-day retirement betrayal, she finally chose herself. For the first time since that blind date in Manhattan, she became the priority in her own life again. The woman who once revolutionized the modeling industry and earned $47 million a year remembered who she was before she became half of a power couple. She remembered what it felt like to be Gisele Bündchen, not Tom Brady's wife. And in reclaiming her identity, she proved the most important point of all, that sometimes the greatest act of love is learning when to stop loving someone else more than you love yourself, when to stop sacrificing your dreams for someone else's ambitions, when to stop waiting for someone else to choose you, when to finally choose yourself. The story of how you survive being married to your biggest competition ends with a simple truth. Sometimes you don't survive the marriage. Sometimes the relationship doesn't survive the impossible mathematics of two people who both need to be the star. But you can emerge from it stronger, clearer, and more certain of who you are when no one else is watching. Gisele Bündchen spent 13 years learning that lesson the hard way. She sacrificed her prime earning years, her professional identity, and her individual dreams for a marriage that was built on fundamentally incompatible needs. But in the end, it was the most valuable education she ever received. She learned that love without mutual respect and compromise is just elaborate selfishness. She learned that supporting someone else's greatness should enhance your life, not replace it. Most importantly, she learned that being alone is better than being lost in someone else's story. Today, Gisele Bündchen is no longer the highest paid model in the world. She's no longer married to the greatest quarterback in NFL history. But she's something more valuable